us are spending a lot more time at home these days, those who can. And that's a good opportunity for those of us who craft to get some more crafting done. So I thought I would relive the blog or the video log experience. I tried this a couple of times last year, didn't get tons of views, so I just thought I'd try it again and see if folks enjoyed kind of seeing what I'm working on, what different projects. I have stuff started in quilting and knitting and paper crafting, doing a lot more cooking with us being home more and not eating out. So I thought that I would share a few of those things over several different videos. Today I want to share a quilting project. And one of the things that I've really proud of myself for doing is I am working on a UFO. And if you're not familiar with quilting terminology, that stands for unfinished fabric object. And it's sort of migrated over to other things. People have unfinished knitting objects and paper crafting objects and things. And quilting is an easy one to get started on something and then lose interest or not have all the supplies you need some inspiration or whatever, and you just sort of put it aside and you forget about it. Or you don't forget about it, but you just don't get it out and work on it. About almost 3 years ago, I started this project, 3 years this summer. And my dad was ill, and he passed away in the latter part of the summer. But I wanted a project to work on that was easy to do, super easy, that I could just drop it and go and tend to him when I needed to, because I was kind of on call all the time. He didn't need me all the time, but I was sort of on call to run up there. And so something I could stop, go take care of him, come back, and work on it again. And so I started this quilt project, and I'm going to share with you. It never got done because I went back to it after things settled down a little bit, and I maybe worked on it a little bit more, and I just got kind of bored with it. And every time I pulled it out, I realized I had made it so simple to do, it was just boring. I just wasn't interested in working on this particular quilt. I also didn't know what size to make. It was really flexible. I could make it a twin size, a queen, a king, or whatever size that I wanted for whatever bed, and I didn't really know what we would need. We were in a queen size bed at the time. I thought we might be changing. I expected I would need a king. I've subsequently made a king size bed and started one fresh and made it all the way through. But what I've realized for this particular one is I need a twin size. We have gone to a split king, which is two twin extra long beds. And I think what most people do probably is you have your individual fitted sheets, and then you have a large king size sheet and king size quilts and that kind of thing. But we figured out in a hurry that doesn't work very well for us. We got the adjustable base for our bed, and my husband raises that a lot, and so you're laying there in bed, I'm laying flat, and he raises up, the covers go with him. So, and also these king size quilts are heavy to put on and off the bed, and if you're moving around during the night. So we've decided just to sort of keep our individual bedding, and then the top layer, the coverlet, would be something that goes over the whole thing, makes the whole thing look nice. But right now I need a twin size quilt. So that's what I'm going to work with. And when I went back and looked at my blocks, I discovered that I had about 2/3 of the blocks I needed. So the last few days I have put together the rest of the blocks, and I'm almost ready to piece this quilt. And it's on the wall behind me. And I'll get to that in a moment, as this is one of the possible arrangements. There are other arrangements that I can do, and I want to show you photographs of those. But I'm going to show you the basic block first. This is the block, and it's very random. The purpose of this, in addition to having something really simple, was to use up some of my older stash. Now, I went and bought the white fabric, and my husband must have covered for me, because I have the receipt. I went to Mary Jo's in Gastonia. And if you are in the Southeast, you've probably heard of Mary Jo's. It was a wonderful, wonderful fabric store, and it went out of business a few months ago. But that's where we used to go for everything. And I still have my receipt for this. I think I paid like $4 a yard for this white fabric, which you can't do that anymore. And as I said, it's only 2.5 years ago. But I've got plenty of it. I've still got enough left to do another quilt, since I didn't end up making a giant quilt. Well, what I wanted to do to keep this simple and to make it as nice as possible is I did this so that the white fabric forms the base for the square, and it will be, I will quilt directly onto the white fabric for part of it, and then part of it is covered with the more colorful strips. So it's a string quilt, but it's foundation pieced, and the white fabric is my foundation, and that's a little different than what you typically do for foundation quilt, but again, simple was the rule here, trying to make this simple. The other reason I did this is back then, and for many years, I had trouble rotary cutting because it would hurt my hands. And I've since learned that the key to rotary cutting is to have your rotary cutting mat on a really hard surface. I used to lay my rotary cutting mats on my upholstered surfaces that I pressed on, and when you don't have that really firm surface with your rotary cutting mat, it's really hard to press, and it was hard on my hands. So once I put my rotary cutting mat down on a firm surface, I'll show you that. Let's tilt the camera down here a little bit. So hopefully that's picking up. So I've got I've got a firm surface, and I've got my rotary cutting mat there. It's a lot easier to cut, and I don't have a rotary cutter out here, but I can cut better. But back then, I was just doing a lot of cutting with scissors because I could cut easier that way. So I wanted to cut sort of imprecise strips of fabric, and then just put them down, and using the foundation piece method, get a nice block. So the way I set this up, I'm really proud of myself. I did this and saved it. So when I went back to the project later, I had my template, and I even had notes written on the back of what I was doing. So it was pretty easy to follow anyway, but this made it foolproof to know what I had been working on. So I need to make one more block. I'm one block short. And so for this last block, I bought a 10.5-inch ruler. I remember buying this when I was getting the fabric. And what I do is just put it on a white piece of paper, and let me find a marking pencil. It's probably not the one I would prefer, but I'll just grab it since it's handy. And the way I did this was just marked the outside of my block, because I'm going to end up cutting this with the rotary cutter, cutting it, trimming it down, but this gives me a guideline to go by. And I laid my block over my little template here, or pattern that I created, and then I just used a ruler and marked my lines. And there are black lines that show through on my template. And these will end up being my sewing lines for the fabric. Alright, so what I am left with is this piece of fabric, and these pink lines probably do not show up great on the camera, but I can see them so that when I'm starting, let's say this is the fabric that I want for the largest piece. Then I just lay this piece of fabric down, put my block on it with the line side showing up, and position it so that I know there's enough of the fabric that will get caught in the seam that it can be flipped over. So I will sew along here, and then when I turn the square over, this presses down. And I do that same thing with each row of the fabric. And then I end up with this block once everything is trimmed down. So in the case of this one, I did the yellow floral piece first, pressed it, then I laid the blue piece down on it, and I sewed. There was a line under here that I used as a guideline to sew, and I just kept doing that for all of the strips. And I sort of batched these, so I might do the long one on several of them, and then do the next one and the next one. And I was really arbitrary about my colors and my arrangement. I didn't worry about having an orange one in this position, or a yellow one in this position, or purple one in this position. It was just, however they felt. I just tried to keep a variety of color per block. And sometimes they're lighter colors, sometimes they're darker colors. But let's take a look at the wall. I'm going to carry the camera over to the wall so you can see some more of the blocks. I have not arranged the blocks exactly the way I want them. As I'm looking at them through the camera, viewfinder, I can see that some of them are coming off a lot darker than others. Like right here I have 2 dark ones on the bottom and then 2 lighter ones. I'm going to mix that up a little bit more and change them around. What I was trying to do here is just figure out what arrangement I would use. And I'm going to show you some still shots of a couple of other arrangements that I came up with. And I like the still shots that I showed you. One of them was just sort of everything kind of going in a weird arrangement. I'd have to play with that one a little bit more. That was probably a little too abstract for what I was going for. I like the one where the squares come together this way. So they form a diamond. And I like this one. These were the 2 favorites. And I've decided, I think, to do this one that's up here on the wall, because it gives me some open area to do a lot of free motion quilting, as well as has this really interesting geometric design. I'm going to have 6 blocks in 6 columns and 9 rows of blocks, and they'll be finished 10-inch blocks, so that'll be a 60 by 90 quilt, which I think will be a good size for one of our beds. It might be a little smaller than the standard twin bed, but remember we're putting 2 beds together here, so it doesn't really need to hang off too much in the middle, just on each side of the bed. So that's the project that I'm working on right now. It's one of the projects I'm working on right now. I have knitting projects started. I've got paper crafting stuff. I've not really got too much started. I think I have a birthday card that needs a greeting, and then I'll be done. But there's plenty of things I want to do. So, well, I'm at home more, probably for several weeks. We don't know how much. I want to get some things done and try to make as much use of my time as I can. And doing something creative helps take your mind off a lot of what's going on in the world, because it can be really frightening what's happening. So, and it's a good way to protect yourself too, if you can stay home and stay busy on things like this. So anyway, at least I think so. So thanks for joining me today. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I hope you'll come back for more things and knitting projects I want to share with you, and might even get into the kitchen, although I'll have to clean up if you're going to come see my kitchen to do some cleaning up if I'm going to film in there. Not that it's not hygienic, it's just that, you know, I can always find something more creative to do than clean house. So I might get around to doing a little spring cleaning while I have extra time at home. Yeah, maybe. Desperate times. Anyway, thanks again. Bye.